What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. The NBA draft is quickly approaching us. It's actually on this upcoming Thursday, and the consensus still seems to be that the Raptors are going to be staying at the number 4 pick and most likely taking Jalen Suggs. But some recent rumors that I've seen around the Toronto Raptors and around the media have shown that maybe the Raptors do have some other options. So today we'll be addressing and breaking down some of those rumors that have been surrounding the draft and addressing the possible effects of each of these situations. So we'll be going over the potential of the Raptors trading up to 3, maybe if they want to consider Scottie Barnes as well, and then the potential of Lowry joining the Lakers and the availability of Pascal Siakam. So we got a lot to go over today. Make sure to stick around, and if you do enjoy today's video, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. But anyways, let's get into the video. So the first one that we have is the potential of the Raptors trading up to that number 3 pick. Now, there's no question that if the Raptors draft number 3 or number 4, that they're going to be very, very happy, because going into the draft lottery, obviously moving up was just an added bonus. But the Raptors do have a chance to become real aggressors come draft night. And according to the NBA writer Kevin O'Connor, they have contacted the Cleveland Cavaliers about the availability of that pick at number 3. Now, obviously, there's a big reason why the Raptors would do so, and that's hoping that Evan Mobley would fall down to 3 and the Raptors potentially being able to take him there. And, obviously makes sense because he's the only way really in the draft that they could immediately address that big issue at the center position. Now, in terms of Evan Mobley, we'll start with breaking him down. Now, obviously, gives you a ton of versatility. He's probably the best two-way player in this draft. We look at what he does offensively, his ability to shoot, pass, be a playmaker off the bounce, and he's also a great defender with that natural jumping ability, and he's a natural rim protector. In terms of the Raptors, I take nothing away from a guy like Khem Birch and the production that he had filling in for the Raptors at the 5 last year, but I think the Raptors are such a better team if you can bring Khem Birch off the bench and slot a guy like Mobley in at that 5 position. What's really interesting about this, and I was sort of thinking about the potential of trading up last week when rumors came out about the Houston Rockets and what they were planning to do with the number 2 pick. Now, obviously, nothing's set in stone, and even the report said that the Rockets are still pretty much 50-50 on both Jalen Green and Evan Mobley, but they did say that there was a slight lean towards Jalen Green. So if the Raptors do want to trade up to 3, you would like your chances a little bit more now that Mobley would slide down to your own position. And so what would they have to give up in this potential trade? Well, in my opinion, obviously the most likely situation is a trade based around the pick swap. So obviously you're trading the 4th pick away to get that 3 pick, and then you're having to add another guy as well. But I think it's really, really complicated because I assume the Cavaliers, the first guy they would bring up would be OG Anunoby, in my opinion. I'd assume the Cavs would want to throw Siakam and those type of names all around. But, even if the Cavs do throw in a guy like Colin Sexton, that would make the trade a little bit better for the Raptors. It just really makes no sense, in my opinion. Looking at the future, looking, I think, where the Raptors core currently is right now and where they stand in the Eastern Conference. So I don't think the Raptors will trade up to 3. I think they'll be more than content with staying at 4, taking Suggs or whoever they end up going. So, yeah, in terms of that rumor, I don't think it's going to happen. The next one is, are the Raptors considering Scottie Barnes at number 4? Reports came out, I think, earlier on in the week that the Raptors, might not be so set on Jalen Suggs, or at least are taking a look at other options, which isn't a bad thing. And before we break down that particular rumor, let's take a look at what Scottie Barnes would give the Raptors. And at the forefront, everything that the Raptors would like in Scottie Barnes is he definitely fits the mold of the Raptors organization, particularly coming from how solid he is on defense and just overall is a very, very good two-way player. In terms of Barnes as well, got the size. He's 6'7". I think without shoes is what he was in the draft combine. Has a wingspan of almost 7'3". So he's not necessarily a big man, but he does give you some very big size on the court. And just the overall idea of potentially slotting Scottie Barnes into the lineup alongside Anunoby and Siakam is a lineup that, really, really could be enticing and give teams some weird looks, in my opinion. Now, of course, though, when we're talking about Barnes, we can't fly over how raw this guy is on offense, especially in terms of his shooting and shooting motion. This is a guy that shot 27.5% last year from 3. Overall, again, just struggled with that shooting form. But if I were the Raptors, would I consider him? Well, that's a tough question because in my opinion, to say whether or not I would consider him is a very broad statement. And in my opinion, it's worth at least taking a look at a kid of this caliber, especially because what he gives you two ways and just the overall ceiling. I think he does have one of the higher ceilings in the draft. However, if I'm not trading down to 5 or 6, I wouldn't take him, especially with the uncertainty with Kyle Lowry, which we're going to break down even more in depth in just a second. But with the uncertainty of Lowry potentially not coming back, Jalen Suggs, A, makes a lot more sense positionally, but also B, I think he's a much more NBA-ready player in a Toronto Raptors team that I think, is going to need some of that leadership experience when Kyle Lowry or potentially Kyle Lowry doesn't return to the team next year. So that being said, what are the impacts of Kyle Lowry's future, whether he stays or not? Does it affect who the Raptors draft? So there were reports that came out yesterday, the day that I'm filming this, that said that Lowry and DeRozan could potentially be taking pay cuts in order to go and meet up in Los Angeles, play for the Lakers alongside AD and LeBron. Now, this particular move might have come as a bit of a surprise for Raptors fans, NBA fans as a whole, but the idea of Kyle Lowry not returning to the Raptors next year, isn't an unheard of topic. And I really do think it is more likely than not that Kyle Lowry in some way doesn't return and isn't in the Raptors starting lineup next year, but I think the more likely option would be a sign and trade. However, regardless if Lowry leaves or not, again, you need a replacement, and whether that comes from somebody internally, because they do have a lot of options, whether it's Van Vliet who starts at the 1, I do think it's worth the Raptors adding somebody else, and that's what makes Jalen Suggs, the perfect guy, I think, for the Raptors in this scenario. And I love calling Jalen Suggs a 2.0 kind of Lowry, or Kyle Lowry 2.0, because really the way he plays is very, very similar. They're both hustle players two-way. Jalen Suggs in particular is pretty efficient offensively, has a high basketball IQ similar to Lowry. On offense, he's able to use that IQ to facilitate the basketball. Might help the Raptors very, very much needed. Because he's so good at pick and rolls. Definitely could help a guy like Siakam, very decisive as well. Doesn't really turn the ball over, and then uses on defense that same IQ, pressure the ball, force turnovers of the opposition, can get you a couple of steals a game as well. So with that being said, I think the likelihood that Suggs would be the guy at number 4 is definitely increased because Kyle Lowry is so uncertain in the future with Toronto. And regardless of how much you like Scottie Barnes, you gotta really, when you look on paper, you gotta think that Suggs makes a lot more sense. The final one is another rumor that came out yesterday. It was reported by a source on Bleacher Report that Pascal Siakam was put on the trading block by the Toronto Raptors. Now, this particular Siakam being available move doesn't necessarily pertain directly to the Raptors draft options, but first of all, I wanted to address this, and second of all, I do think it's very possible that if Pascal Siakam is available, the number 4 pick becomes available as well. Before I do get into addressing the rumors, though, I want to say that in my opinion, I would not trade Pascal Siakam. And these rumors are coming from people, in my opinion, that believe the Raptors are closer to being in a rebuilding stage than they are in a retooling stage. And I still believe with the core that you have, with Siakam, Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., and that number 4 pick, most likely Jalen Suggs, the Raptors are closer to just being 1 or 2 pieces from being able to slingshot themselves back into the upper end of the Eastern Conference. So I would not trade Siakam. But if Siakam is available, I have heard rumors that they would package a guy like Siakam and that number 4 pick and try to go for one of the big guys that are also on the trade block and have, rumored to be requesting trades. The main guy, of course, being Damian Lillard. I theoretically think that this could potentially make a bit of sense because if you lose Lowry, you would no longer need that number 4 pick because you no longer need Jalen Suggs and Damian Lillard as a replacement. But on the other side, if you're getting rid of Siakam, you're selling part of your future, and B, you're creating another positional issue because now you're really, really weak with your big men. Now you don't only need to replace a center, but you need to replace a 4 and a 5. Makes the offseason a lot tougher for the Raptors. So I do think the availability of Siakam, though, does create some interesting scenarios. The hypothetical trades will be, very, very interesting to watch. I don't think it'll happen. In my opinion, it makes no sense to trade Siakam, and I'd rather, hope he develops into a star or try to add a piece or two alongside him rather than give up, in my opinion, this early in his career. But anyways, guys, that's all for today. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure to smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs because we're going to be covering the Toronto Raptors throughout this entire offseason, and it should be a busy one, so you definitely won't want to miss out. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.